What's up, everybody? Zach the Yacht Nerd here for another quick tip from our first episode ever of the Yacht Nerd podcast. These quick tips are supposed to be under 10 minutes. Sometimes we go a little bit over, but last week we made an hour and 30-minute video about bareboat charters, the number one type of charter that we engage in, and actually the most popular type of charter on the planet. So I wanted to make a very, very shortened, condensed version of this specifically for the captains. Now, before we get started, I always have to do my disclaimers. First and foremost, I am not a tax accountant and I am not a lawyer. This is not legal advice. This is informational only. Always verify this stuff, but it can all be researched on your own, and I'm going to show you how. So let's get into the video. Last week in episode 1, we talked about bareboat charters. We found out that our number one resource for bareboat charters, where to find all of this information and verify it and validate it, is through the NAVIC 7-94, NVIC 7-94. You can Google search that, find a PDF. It looks like an old scan-in version, and that's where you're going to find all of this information. What I've done is interpreted that interpretation from the it is the Passenger Vessel Safety Act of 1993, I believe is what it was. And we have interpreted that interpretation. Okay, so it's an interpretation of an interpretation, which means it's left open to interpretation. All right, so first and foremost, the biggest question: how many passengers are allowed on? It is 12 passengers plus the charterer, the person who rented the boat, plus the captain, plus the crew. So the charterer does not count as a passenger. We looked up a separate document that clarified this in writing from the Coast Guard. It is verified and true that it is 12 plus charter plus captain and crew. Okay, that is the passenger count. So we have a little rhyme here at Anchor whenever we're training our employees how to tell customers that it's 12 plus you plus captain and crew. And that's how we say it. So you captains can reiterate that. If they show up with 12 plus a extra person, make sure that you know that the charterer is there on board, because they're not a passenger, and you can have 12 plus the one. Okay. Secondly, we found out that the captain and crew must be selected by the charterer. Okay, so you cannot be the only captain on the roster. The owner of the boat nor you can force them to use you as the captain. You can refer yourself and they can select you, but they have to be chosen by a roster, and the owner has the legal right to provide that roster. A good roster is at least 4 captains. 4 captains is the minimum roster we recommend. Could you get away with 3? Maybe. Should you? No. Should you do more than 4? Absolutely. You should have probably 10 captains on your list of rostered captains for your boat. And I recommend 10 being that magic number, but you can get away with 4, especially bigger boats, harder to navigate. You don't want some new person coming every week, but 4 is the minimum. Okay. The owner of the boat or the owner's representative cannot be on board. Who are owner's representatives during the charter, I should say? Who are the owner's representatives? An employed captain. So if you are an employee of the captain of the company and they are paying you, the owner is paying you for the charter. If you are the owner of the boat, or if you are the majority shareholder, I would say, of this entity. So don't be on the boat if you're the owner, and don't be on the boat if you're the owner's representative. Captains, be very careful not to become the owner's representative, and we're going to show you how to do that. Okay. The owner also cannot pay. This is still all in the NAVIC 7-4. The owner cannot pay the captain or crew. It has to be the charterer. So not only does the charterer have to be able to select a crew, they have to have a way to pay them directly. That doesn't necessarily mean cash at the boat. When you use a platform like Anchor, you will find that we have created payment tools separate from normal e-commerce tools. These are patent pending real payment flows that actually get you paid by the charterer in a timely manner and directly, and check all the boxes of compliance. So captains just don't accept money. If an owner calls you up, I have a charter, I'm paying you this much money for the charter, don't do it. It's illegal. It is not a legal bareboat charter, and money flow and contracts have everything to do with it nowadays. So speaking of money flow, We have all items must be sold and paid for by the charter, sold separately, sold individually, and paid for by the charterer. That means the boat lease, the rental of the vessel. The captain must be separate even on the itemized receipt. And this all needs to be very clear. The captain needs to be paid separately and directly. The crew needs to be paid separately and directly. The cleaning fee needs to be paid separately and directly. The fuel needs to be paid separately and directly. And gratuity, anything else, even insurance, all of this stuff needs to be line by line by line by line on your itemized receipt. Anchor captains, every time they do a charter, get an itemized receipt. That is to be able to show the Coast Guard, this is how the money is flowing in this transaction. This is a legal bareboat charter. So those invoices are not your pay stubs, captains. Those invoices are for your protection on the boat with the Coast Guard. Here, we did this right. Here's how we did the money flow. Okay, moving on. The owner cannot dictate where the boat goes. The owner doesn't have anything. They are giving full possession of the vessel to the renter. You, the hired captain, are now under the employ of the charterer. The charterer is your employer, not the boat owner. And the charterer has said, I want to go over to this place, this area. The owner cannot say no, or else full possession has not been passed. However, you, the captain, always have full authority when it comes to safety. Let's say they say, I want to go over there. Over there has sharp rocks, shallow waters, and puts the boat's safety at risk. You don't have to go there. You can say no. Okay. Again, condensed version. We're not going to get this all in here today. So there should be, these are major bullet points that you should always look at. There should be a separate captain services agreement from the bareboat / demise charter agreement. Okay. And an itemized receipt. So that all needs to be signed. It's not just a piece of paper on board without a signature. This needs to be signed. If you don't have a signed agreement on board with a charter agreement / demise agreement, remember bareboat charter and demise are the same term. Pop quiz. If I ever meet you in person, I will ask you that question to see if you're educated and have listened to this podcast. If you're not, I don't even go down the rabbit hole with you because you don't know what you're talking about. Bareboat and demise charter, same thing. So signed, yes, it has to be signed. It can be in a digital copy or paper. So digital and paper are fine. Okay. And an itemized receipt, I also recommend being on board to show how the money flowed. If you have an item, if you have a receipt and it just shows yacht charter and you have 12 passengers on board, I would crumble that piece of paper up and get rid of it because that is just throwing guilt and shade your way. You don't need it. It needs to be an itemized receipt from a fucking reputable company. All right. Do this right. Last part. So we went over all of those items that need to be present. That's not all of them. Go watch the full video, but those are the main bullet points. Okay. So 12 plus you plus captain and crew selected by the charterer and paid for by the charterer directly. Owner can't pay captain and crew. A good roster has to be on there. Okay. All items sold separately. Fuel, all the fuel, captain pay, boat leasing, gratuity, all needs to be separate. Owner can't dictate anything where the boat goes, nothing like that, unless it's a safety hazard, and then the captain's in charge. And there should be a separate captain services agreement and charter agreement. Again, these aren't all of them, because remember, we have to survey the boat before and after, and that's part of the captain's app in Anchor. But let's move on. That's all part of your check-in and check-out flow in our transaction. So, okay, the last thing we talked about in that video is how to spot an illegal charter. And we went on and found a major website and instantly found them out of compliance. Why is that? Well, first of all, we recommend to the captain. This is recommendation for the captain and the boat owner. You two are really leading the charge and making sure these things are done correctly. But I'm sorry, captains, you're more important than boat owners are. No offense, boat owners. It's just captains have a license at risk. You don't. Okay. So this is their career. This is your side hustle. So career versus side hustle, career wins every time. So captains, you're the most important factor here to say no when you see these things happening. One, make sure there's a roster of captains, that the customer saw that roster before. You're not the only captain allowed to drive this thing. Okay. So did the person see it before? And did they say, yes, I want to pick from this roster, or no, you guys go and pick yourselves? Did they see a roster, and where is it published? Where is this roster of captains published? And often you find they are not. Okay. Two, Never accept payment from a boat owner. If a boat owner says, hey, I got a charter booked, I'm going to pay you after the charter or right before the charter or whatever, and the owner's handing you money, say no, it's illegal. The charter has to pay you. Okay. So it's also very awkward and weird when the charter has to bring an extra $500 to the boat to pay you in cash. That's a bad thing. You're most likely not going to get gratuities. So the way Anchor does it is proper in the booking process. That way, gratuity afterwards is highly likely. Anyway, we're talking about legal stuff here, not user experience. All right. Look at the listing where the boat is being booked, and you're going to look for a couple of things. So find out where did this person book this at? Did they book it on anchorrides.com? Did they book it at Anchor Yacht Rentals? Did they book it at Boat Center? Did they book it at Get My Boat? Did they book it at the owner's individual website? So go find the listing where it was booked, do 5 minutes of research and look for these keywords. And if you see any of these, run for the hills. Okay. 1, captains included. Okay. We got to get away from, you cannot sell Happy Meals in this industry. Remember, we talked about Happy Meals in the full video. Happy Meals means burger, fries, and a shake. No, you have to sell a burger, fries, and a shake. You can't call it a number 6. You can't call it a Happy Meal. So get away from Happy Meal charters, captains, and owners. Stop doing Happy Meal charters. Find a certified platform, a real platform that can actually do this for you right. So if you see captain included, if you see fuel included, if you see no captain roster on the listing, if you see bundled pricing in any way, bundled pricing is bullshit. Okay. You can't do that in bareboat charter. You could if it was a term charter. If this was a big, huge plus 100 gross ton, you could still do 12 passengers and you could bundle it up in one price and not have to itemize anything. But you are doing bareboat charter, captain. So get away from the Happy Meal charters. Look for these on the websites. Okay. And then demand that there be a signed agreement on board, both a charter agreement / bareboat, or sorry, bareboat agreement / demise. Either one's fine. They're the same thing. And you must also have a captain services agreement if you're on board. If you don't have a captain services agreement or something that shows that they hired you, you are now a passenger. Okay. You're not the operator. You're a passenger. So have that agreement on board. That's what makes you captain and crew. And check the ID of the charter when you get there. I snap a picture every single time. Why? 1, for my own safety. As the captain, I'm snapping that pic because I don't know what you're going to do later on in the charter. You could put a gun to my head and I don't have any recourse. You could damage the boat. I don't have any proof that you were even here that day. It's your word versus theirs. Guess who's going to be liable if that boat gets in trouble? You, the licensed captain. It's your license. Get a picture of these people's ID. And for the love of God, make sure the ID matches the charter agreement name and the face of the person you're seeing there. So take the ID, look at the person in front of you, look at the ID. Does that match? And then look at the name and look at the charter agreement and make sure they match. Take a picture. I do it overlapping. These are my notes, but let's assume this is a charter agreement. I put the ID off to the side and I snap a picture of it and I make sure I have that saved in my phone in case something goes wrong. They were here today. They checked in. I have legal recourse. So stop skipping that step. It is vital to your own safety. Okay. So do it. That's it. That's what we talked about. That's how to spot illegal charters. What is a bareboat charter? It's pretty simple. You're renting a boat to somebody and separately they're hiring a captain. Demise means to divide. Demise and bareboat charter, same thing. So we're dividing up all of these different things. We're leasing the boat to them. We're selling them fuel. They're paying the captain and crew directly. They're selecting captain and crew. It's really simple. It just has to be structured right. So it's easy to do it wrong. It's also easy now to do it right with the right companies, of course, Anchor, where I'm the president, CEO, and head of product. So I'm going to boast that one. Are there others out there? I'm sure there are. There's some good, reputable bareboat charter companies. I know Marine Max has a division down in the Bahamas and BVI or Virgin Islands. I know the Moorings has a pretty good program. I know there's a couple others that do it right, but they don't have the different coverage and they're not day charter programs. So Anchor is the only bareboat day charter program that's doing this 100% correctly and has letters of compliance signed by the Coast Guard. So you take your pick where you want to captain at, and you can always refer people to us and say, hey, this boat needs to get signed up with you. They're so far out of compliance, they don't know what they're doing. Our team handles it. So appreciate you watching the shorter version of this video. It's still not short, but it's shorter. And if you have any questions, again, always put them in the comments below. I do this on YouTube. I also put the audio up on Spotify sometimes, but always comment in the question, below, and I will answer them in a future video. All right. Thanks. As always, have fun and be safe. See you on the water.